it down. Chop it down. Chop it down. You gon' chop it down. Chop it down. You gon' chop it down.
I just appreciate everybody watching.
Watch him throw the ball. We gon' pick it off. You gon' let him hit the hole or you gon' cut it off. You gon' play through fourth and long or you gon' punt it off. Your defenders, heavy hitters, put your pads in. Don't be looking for the ref to throw no flags in. Keep the helmet on, keep the cleats tight. You the type to want to win by any means, right? You should look alive. This is Trap or Dive.
Sir. Yes, sir. Welcome back to another episode of the Trap or Dive podcast provided to you by 214 Media. I'm your host, Marley Mo, Hendo Mo, Coach Mo, all that good stuff, man. Welcome in. Y'all know what time it is, man. Look, I thought on Tuesday, being today, January 10th, that before the news of Scott Turner coming out, and we were just gonna talk about a lot about Sam Howell. And a lot about what Ron Rivera had to say at this press conference, as well as Martin Mayhew. We're still going to dive into that a little bit, but I think the big deal, the big news out the way is Scott Turner being fired today, a couple of hours ago. What's going on, Marcus? What's going on, Yak Yak? Somebody's happy tonight. Look, man, we all got to be in a good mood sometimes, man. I'm trying my best. Had a long day, but you know it is what it is. AJ and Dre is on the way. I did start the show a little bit early today, only off the strength. JP Finlay everybody knows him, does radio for 106.7 The Fan, and covers the Commanders for NBC Sports Washington. He is scheduled to check in at 7 o'clock at the beginning of the show, essentially. So I just wanted to make sure we tapped in, got everything situated, and we can kind of he has a time limit, family duties, all those things, man. We got to respect the family time. So I want to make sure we get as much time with JP as humanly possible tonight. He broke the news, man. So it's gonna be interesting to get his thoughts on Scott Turner. It's gonna be interesting to get his thoughts on Ron Rivera and just the whole idea and direction of this team moving forward after a year that's, it's so many ways that you can take it, the angles, the descriptions. What happened to the season? How did this season start off so poorly and end so poorly, but had some good moments in between? All these things, man. So I'm interested in seeing how things work from that perspective and seeing a person who was there on the day-to-day and was able to talk to some players, give vibes from the players, and then also give vibes from the coaching staff and coaches and mainly Ron Rivera as well, just to see like how he interprets this entire ordeal to be about. Rich, what's going on with you? Al, too, I see you. He said Ron juked from having to pretend to hype up Heineke and Howell off season by firing Scott. Rich, what's going on with you, player? We'll make sure that we show that so JP can check in and see the good words. Also, if you all have questions, comments, comments cool, but if you have any questions, I'll try to fit them in. Make sure that we get at least a couple as well on your side so we can see what JP's thinking from whatever it is you all have asked him. It is interesting to see what's going on, Brian. Appreciate you checking in. Oh, administrative item. Let's get that out of the way before we even lock in. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you are new to the Trap or Dive YouTube channel, if you are watching on Twitter, you are very well welcome to stay on that side. But we don't see comments on Twitter, Periscope, whatever. Like that stuff is weird. So if you want to be a part of the show, try to migrate over to YouTube, so you can check in with the comments as well, or Twitch, whichever side that you prefer. We prefer YouTube. Brian says it's just hilarious. Let him go after the press conference, ducking the smoke from the reporters. That is actually an interesting angle. And I thought about that because if you like think about what he said in his statement. Let me see if I can pull it up. Give me 2 seconds, because Brian, you have an interesting point. Let me pull it up. Where is the statement that he put out? Heineke also, he left an IG response. All right, where is the statement? Here we go. All right, so here's a statement from Rivera, and it goes as following, quote unquote, I met with Coach Turner. I do this all the time. I could just share the screen. Why don't I just share the screen? Share. Okay. Put it up there. All right. I met with Coach Turner today and informed him that we will be moving in another direction moving forward with the offensive coordinator position. Unfortunately, we did not live up to the expectations and standard that I expected to see from our offensive unit. I felt it was best for a fresh start at the coordinator position heading into the next year. I have tremendous amount of respect for Scott Turner and thanked him for his 3 years of service to our organization. I wish Scott and his family all the best in the future. Ladies and gentlemen, Brian, like I said, I think you have a solid point. It's interesting, but I think my thing was when he had his press conference, right? Essentially, for those who don't know, oh, hold on, I'm showing y'all my show outline. I can't do that. Let me go ahead and just go off the top of my head. I don't want to show y'all the backstage, the production side. We can't do that. But he has said essentially like, I thought Scott done a good job, essentially like one wording his answers when it came to Scott. And I couldn't tell. I'm being honest with everybody. I couldn't tell in the moment that was undoubtedly we're moving on from Scott Turner, and therefore I don't want to talk about him too much type of tone. I couldn't tell. But clearly we saw his intention right after the fact that he did move on from Scott Turner, and that those was his intentions, and he didn't want to dive into it with the reporters. He didn't want to fire him before the meeting with the reporters, the end of the season meeting. So it's interesting to see it that way, Brian. And maybe, like I said, I was off. Maybe he had his decision made up all along. He didn't need to do any further evaluations. Personally speaking, Al too, you're in here. Yak, you've been around as well. Monty, you've been around as well. You all know that there was no way after that report that came out that you can keep Scott Turner any longer than what you had. Like 9 players comes out on Saturday, the day before your game, and tells a reporter under the condition of anonymity that I have issues with his play calling. I'm not interested, or I have questions about the future moving forward. He doesn't utilize his play. This is me, not, these aren't quotes, but this is kind of like the sentiment that you get when you listen to some of the opinions surrounding Turner. But like, he's not utilizing his players to the best of their abilities. He's not putting them in positions to win, and I don't feel like he has the right scheme to dial up, whatever it is for his guys. And ultimately, you can't survive that. And you can't survive that when you have over 3 people having issues with you. 9? Come on, bro. That's a layup for Ron. Like, no disrespect to Scott Turner in that regard, but that's a layup. I gotta let him go. So when you see like where the writing was on the wall, it was there. And I think the hesitancy for a lot of people when it came to Scott Turner, I'll finish this thought and I'll circle back to it. I think the hesitancy when it came to Scott Turner is more so because they thought Ron was, Ron is a loyal individual. And also he labeled so many excuses throughout his time here in Washington, but also more importantly on the offensive side of football for why the offensive line struggled, for why this offense couldn't put up points, for why the quarterback position wasn't as successful as it could have been, especially under Carson Wentz. A lot of things had to do with injuries. A lot of things had to do with Carson Wentz being hurt and him getting taken out of the lineup. Brian Robinson wasn't around. Training camp bugs that hurt the offensive line. So many different angles that had little to do with the fact that if you think about it, even in this message right here, right, that we have pulled up, there isn't necessarily any type of accountability from a head coach perspective. Like that, this is all about, I had expectations for this offense. Scott Turner is the coordinator. He didn't do a good job. Therefore, I have to let him go. I think this is a twofold thing And I think we know that Ron Rivera can't really get fired in the situation that he's currently in. But, bro, your job security is safe. Like, you're good. And you still can't tell us that you didn't do a good job as well. You have a doing in the fact that Scott Turner isn't here anymore. That offensive line is your doing. That offensive line is his doing. So what are we talking about? So I think to kind of understand like the dichotomy here, I do think that Scott Turner had to go. But Ron Rivera, the player personnel guy, he also didn't do the best job at helping Scott Turner out and his offense out. Like, his quarterback was constantly under siege. He didn't have an answer. He swung and he missed wrong for his interior offensive lineman, Andrew Norwell, Trey Turner, and he swung and missed with the quarterback position, Carson Wentz. Like, that is a huge issue. That is ultimately what doomed you. Like, you had the weapons on the outside, you had your running backs, but Ron Rivera, the GM side, ultimately contributed, not the reason Scott Turner still has a job to do, contributed to Scott Turner getting fired. Let's go ahead and add the good man AJ in here. Let me see, catch up with some of the comments as well. My bad. All right, give me 2 seconds, y'all. Let me see what y'all talking about for a second. Stop sharing. Boom, 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 and boom. There we go. What's going on with you, AJ?
Cooler, man.
Good.
You hear me good?
Yes, sir. We good. So where are we at? Let's go through some of the comments right quick. Will we lose Taylor with the loss of Turner? Let's circle back. Rich. I'm gonna circle back to that one. It wouldn't have been any smoke for him firing Scott. I don't think he would have. Look, too many reports out there to say the players will have a huge issue with it. Taylor did post something on IG. I didn't read it yet, so I don't know what he said, but I would imagine it's some emotional response to Scott getting fired. He said you couldn't tell. I didn't know for sure Norv's son was getting fired, but Mayhew talking about the pass run ratio, and the playbook roster mesh. No way we can see. No, so I'm not saying I couldn't tell. I couldn't tell by his response today. Yes, that's correct. Altu, I couldn't tell. Now, once vet players on O said they had no faith in Turner, you knew he was cooked. I've never played a down of organized football, and what's going on with you, Doug? Appreciate you checking in. Look, you got to think too. And this is actually a good question for AJ on the player side. So the thing is, like, why did it take this long for 9 people to come forward? I think that the bigger thing is, and correct me if I'm wrong, AJ, I don't think it was a thing. I don't think that I don't know what they anticipated speaking to a reporter about the job that Scott Turner has done. Obviously, they're clearly frustrated because that's the only reason why you're coming out and feeling comfortable enough to speak that. But, like, that's not normal to have that amount, but also have that amount, like, go on the record and speak about one coordinator. So I don't know, Doug, but I think AJ will probably, because of you got your top secret job and shit. He probably knows a little bit more than me on that one. But I think this is a unique situation to have 9 people come forward and all criticize or have criticism directed towards their offensive coordinator.
I mean, I feel like players been feeling like this for a while. I kind of voiced that players been feeling like this since last year. I don't know why it took so long on both sides of the ball. I just think that, the timing and everything, you're eliminated from the playoffs is no longer a distraction if you bring in a discussion of this magnitude. Also, the players in those position groups, they know in the meetings and in that facility overall, they probably felt like Scott was safe unless they spoke up. Until they say something, and it don't necessarily have to be direct, or maybe they've done it direct and there wasn't no traction. They felt like, okay, we'll talk to one of these reporters and get the story out there and kind of push this further along. I mean, at the end of the day, 9 people, speaking to you, candidly, but without putting their names out there, it's pretty it's pretty huge. There's 11 players on the field that start, so that's pretty much the entire offense that said, "Hey, man, I ain't rocking with this shit." So yeah, I think at the end of the day, they just felt the atmosphere, and Ron wasn't really gonna let go of Scott. So they were like, "Hey, we'll take it in our own hands and get this shit to start moving."
Yeah. I agree with you, Jay. Turner was it was probably an easier decision than Sam Mills was, to be honest with you. Like I said, it was a layup, bro. That one was a layup. When that report came out, Ron ain't had nothing to do except for, well, if they feel this way, Scott, we need to have a talk. But AJ, as we kind of gear up, JP just hit me up, said he on the way. Busy day, obviously, for what he got going on. Scott is one angle, right? But when you look at this offense and trying to figure out, now there was a report that said that Rivera will be looking for replacements externally. What do you think is the right thing to do, or is that the right thing to do given his circumstance and his situation with Washington?
I mean, seeing the video clips of the presser and the excerpts, I don't really understand what Ron is trying to do philosophy-wise offensively. So that's where I'm more intrigued.
The same thing.
I'm more intrigued of who the hell he thinks he's going to hire. Some people are saying Mike Shula in the chat, whatever. You're trying to draw into his connections around the league and his tree, and seeing what parts, like what relationships might he utilize. Might it be Mike Shula, who works for the Buffalo Bills? I mean, Mike Shula is not a good offensive coordinator. We have to also remember they had a dynamic quarterback in Cam Newton, which changes a lot of things. So you would think if you do want to run this philosophy, a quarterback that can play off script and provide also the ability to throw, whether it be above average or elite, also will help open up the run game. So it's just a bit confusing. I mean, I don't trust Ron and company to do shit. So yeah, for some, they're chanting and happy that Scott is gone, but it's still Ron Rivera who's doing the selection of the quarterback process once again, and also hiring of a staff as far as replacing Scott Turner at OC. So I mean, I feel like in this case, we already know if this team wasn't up for sale, Ron, Scott, Jack, everybody on the staff would have been fired.
Yeah, that's the main. That is a bigger picture thing, but at this point, we kind of. Well, actually, I think that's one thing we can ask JP. Like, I mean, this one actually moving on from now that I think about it, moving on from Turner kind of indicates that he may have a little bit more power, aka he is definitely going to be around for 2023. For him to make that move, it's clearly okay. I guess in the eyes of the owner. But I think my thing is like what I struggle with is like, is this a lame duck season? Because if it is, two things, and I'm like, how do you convince a guy? I'm not saying it's not going to be, I'm sure it's not going to be too difficult, but I'm saying like, what angle can you go to convince a guy who is going to leave a job for like potentially like a 1-year tryout, right? And say that this is the place you need to be. And then secondly, Ron has put it out there that his essentially his identity on offense, as he said through the presser, was he wanted to run the football, and he wanted that ratio to be 2-1. Now, I don't take him literally when he says 2-1, because there's not one team out there who has a 2-1 ratio type of deal. The Falcons, they run it a lot. They're at 55%. Washington ran it like around 45%. Both are in the top 12, I believe, in run pass ratio. But like, if you put your identity out there that you want to run it X amount of times, like, aren't you already hamstringing your search? Like, isn't your search already hamstrung because you put out there what your identity is? Like, are you going to make people conform to what you want in your team, or is this because that's the thing that kind of hampers me and has me thinking like, bro, you just fired Scott Turner after you said what you want your identity to be. Like, I don't think like you have the weapons to be a balanced offense. Like, you have that at running back, you have that at receiver. You need to find the quarterback position. You need to figure out that offensive line. But like telling people that you want to run the ball and be a dominant run offense from a play call standpoint, I don't think that that's convincing anybody that they need to leave wherever they are from an external spot and come to Washington.
Man, he don't know what the hell they want to do, because as he even said in the presser, it's like, this is what we want our identity to be. But, early on in the process with Carson Wentz, that's not what we were doing. So that means that's not what you want to do. You ended up becoming a run-first team once Wentz got hurt. But when Wentz was starting, they barely ran the ball. Like, they weren't controlling the clock. They weren't focused on getting Gibson touches. You can't put that on Brian Robinson's injury. Like, bro, you still have money and the ability to sign a power running back or utilize Jonathan Williams more, or it's still even Gibson. Before you got Robinson, Gibson was your main man toting the ball. So it's just like you said, what's the allure of coming here to be the OC? I don't know who's my quarterback. I already know I got a shitty offensive line. Yeah, I got some wide receivers to play with. Tight end position, I got some guys that's athletic. I got another guy that's, possibly not going to be on the team. But I hate to say it this way, but the job kind of is a layup pretty much to hire a minority. Like, that's all I can see right now as a minority coach finally getting the opportunity to be an offensive coordinator and possibly propelling this into an opportunity to be a head coach. Because anybody else, if you're Mike Shula, you're with the Buffalo Bills, you may not get a promotion, but you're with a winning organization.
Right. Yes. Like you're with you've already experienced Ron Rivera. Like, you've experienced that already, and you're in a situation where you have a coaching tree, I guess, in a sense, like where he's doing this thing up there in Buffalo. McDermott is, but at the same time, he's winning and he's playing for championships. You don't have to leave that situation. Like, what's the point of leaving that where that Josh Allen is your quarterback and he's going to be there for at least 10 years. You can stay there. You can ride the wave as long as they're willing to have you. You can stay there. Like,
look at it this way,
in terms of Mike Shula. I hope he doesn't hire Mike, but also I think we need to understand that Mike may not want to come here. Is what I'm getting.
And also understand Ken Dorsey might get a job. So who's to say Mike Shula doesn't get bumped up to OC in Buffalo? Like, you just never really know. I think, like I said, I hate to say it that way, but I feel like it's an opportunity prime and perfect for a minority coach. Like, you take the Eric Bieniemy rumor. He might need to get out of the shadows of
let's
Andy
explain
Reid.
That. So
he might need to get out of that shadow.
What's going on with Bieniemy?
And you're not really hearing him being touted as a head coaching hire or candidate this go round already. Like, he already didn't get hired the last two cycles. This time, you're not even hearing him mention the go-to black candidates so far right now. D'Amico Ryans, Raheem Morris, and that's it. I mean, I see Marcus mention Pep Hamilton. I would love for Pep Hamilton to get an opportunity here as OC. Feel like he did an amazing job with coaching up Justin Herbert in San Diego or LA Chargers, however you want to call it. He was just the OC for the Houston Texans. He's a quarterback whisperer. I think some people earlier today in Spaces and stuff had mentioned guys aligned with Sam Howell. I'm not cool with that because I feel like this is beyond the Sam Howell offense. I think the fan base is too dialed into Sam Howell versus what the actual regime is thinking. I don't see them going into the season using Sam Howell, but I just don't really know what direction, they might go in this. I think that I don't care what Shady McCoy is saying. That's my guy. I don't care what he says about Eric Bieniemy. I know way too many players that have been under Bieniemy and love him to death.
I did not realize how many comments we had. I was sitting here. Yeah. Oh my God, I gotta catch up.
We're booming, but I mean, I think that's why it's great that we'll have JP Finlay on here. He's always with the team, very close to the situation. I've even heard him say he's friends with Scott Turner. Maybe he understands what direction they might be going into next. But I don't think that any of us have a real good pulse on who could be the OC here, because it's pretty confusing. But most importantly, if you want to bring in somebody that's top tier, what are your selling points? And could you possibly be bringing that person into a situation where they know it's a lame duck for you as a head coach, but you might be hiring somebody that might replace you?
That's
you giving them a hands-on tryout.
That's another thing. Like, you're in a situation from the head coach perspective where if you look at anybody that you bring in, right, you're likely doing, as you stated, as you outlined, you're likely doing them a favor, because I don't know where I said this. Today's Tuesday, so it wasn't post game. Or maybe I did say it on the Hawks Haven. Either way, point being, you're looking at an offensive coordinator where you either have to hire an assistant or an up-and-coming guy, or minority, just flat out minority, as you said, and you have to hope that this person parlays this opportunity in something much bigger than you anticipated, which can either save your job, right, or it'll either convince the head coach, the new owner and new front office, that we could just move on from Ron and elevate this coordinator right here to head coach. That was the last time I seen that happen was in Tampa Bay, and I think they fired Lovey and they elevated his offensive coordinator, who was straight ass. I gotta remember his name because it was an egregious firing.
I know who you're talking about. Damn, why can I?
Yeah, I'm about to pull it up.
Can't remember the name, but I mean, I don't know if Ron is smart enough to hire those type of coaches and put them around his staffing. I mean, just look at the fact that he picked Jack Del Rio over Wade Phillips as DC.
Yeah, Lovey Smith to Dirk Cutter.
Dirk Cutter. Yeah, then he went from Kevin O'Connell possibly being the OC to forcing in Scott Turner, who wasn't an OC prior to that, didn't call plays for him, but had called like maybe 5 or 6 games under the interim coach in Carolina after he got fired. He brought him in over Kevin O'Connell, who was actually building with Haskins and this team overall. Now we about to watch Kevin O'Connell in the playoffs, first-year head coach, leading the Minnesota Vikings. So it's a lack of foresight, man. And then also, like, his greatest attribute is also his greatest weakness, which is the loyalty aspect. So you really don't know what is going to happen at OC. Can't even create a real sensible pool because, like I said, it's a lame duck situation. You know that Ron is possibly going to get fired, regardless of what he does. You don't have a quarterback that you know you'll be working with. You also don't have an offensive line. You just know you got some dogs at wide receiver. And I'm not talking about Curtis Samuel. I'm just talking about Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dawson. But outside of that, it's like, what am I really coming into the situation with? And Ron also went and got Ron Rivera. How can I put my resume on the line that he's not going to fuck me over and give me another shitty quarterback to work with?
Well, before we go, hey, Dre, I want to get your point in because I know you just checked in. But we do got JP on, so we're gonna bring JP in, have him filling in the conversation. And Dre, we get your thoughts as well. So let's go ahead and bring the good man JP Finlay on. Man, you been busy today, big dog. How you feeling, man?
I'm good. How you guys doing? I wanna start with what's important here. Where the hell does Dre live? That's the nicest house I've ever seen. Is that
Dre? Hey, screen filter. I didn't want to show my humble house, you know what I mean? So I'm just using a screen filter here.
Oh, all right. Well,
Dre live at a Sunrise Living Community.
Old folks home. Yeah, senior citizen living over here.
Grandpa right behind him. But look though, JP, we were just talking. I mean, essentially just the overall aspect of offensive coordinator spot. Obviously, Scott Turner being fired is the biggest deal, and figuring out what to do behind that is one thing. But I guess we'll start from the top. Just seeing that situation overall. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I saw you break the news. I don't know if anybody else was first to it, but I saw you break the news. What is your thoughts about the situation. Obviously, 3 years in a row, nothing really came out of it that was positive in terms of like a production standpoint. But the floor is yours. Just your overall thoughts of Scott Turner, and where do you think things need to go from there?
Yeah, man. I did break it. Thank you. None of us are surprised by this, right? I mean, you've got a team that missed the playoffs the last 2 years. Clearly the offense has been the weak link of the organization. This past year they averaged 18.9 points per game. It's not gonna win a lot in the NFL. I think they have a legit top. I mean, the stats will tell you they're top 10 defense. I think defensively they are a divisional, maybe NFC championship weekend defense. Offense, they just didn't get anywhere near enough. Scott's a part of that, obviously. I think, you can have real questions if the play action stuff works, like if the run concepts marry with the pass concepts. I think he was generally pretty good on his scripts coming out first 15. I think you wonder if there was – I always wondered how much stuff in the second quarter set something up in the fourth quarter from – the same formation, and then you run a different look where the defense is expecting something. And then are you doing that in week 5 to set something up in week 8 against a different opponent when you're going to have another 3rd and 7 in the third quarter, and you give them the same look and let them expect something, and then you do something different? Like, to me, that's the sign. The sign of like great offensive minds to me are maximizing your best players and just getting them the ball. And I don't know that they did that. And being creative. I think Scott was creative formations. There were a million different looks, a million different variations. I think there was a ton of motion. But they got bogged down a lot. People say he didn't run enough. People say he didn't pass enough. Like, some of that, some capacity, being an NFL play caller, you're never going to win. Like, I bet if you go on Chiefs blogs, people are pissed at Andy. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. some capacity, you won't please everybody. Scott was part of the problem, clearly. I think the problems offensively are far greater than Scott. Dude called plays for 9 different quarterbacks in 3 seasons, or I guess 8 quarterbacks, but 9 different times over 3 seasons. Like, I don't know if Joe Gibbs wins in that situation. I think I've been loud on this. I think the moves they made on the offensive line this offseason were a disaster. They went cheap because, give them credit for not reworking Carson's deal and having to go cheap, but they never should have traded for Carson in the first place. But the decision, like Brandon Sheriff to Norwell and Turner, like those are disasters. And they thought they could lean on these veterans that they knew from a previous stop, and it ended up they couldn't. Like we do the blame pie thing on the radio. Like if I'm doing a blame pie for the offensive struggles, at least more than half probably is on the lack of a stud quarterback or even a competent high level, like the lack of a solid B quarterback. I'm not even talking about A, but like, give me a 7.5, 8 out of 10, and this team's probably playing this weekend.
And then, the crazy thing, just real quick, we thought that at the very least, Carson coming in. Like a lot of people was like at the bare minimum, he can give you average quarterback play, and he couldn't even give you that.
Dude, I said the same thing.
Please don't put me in that category because I did not believe that.
I'm saying we as in a collective, AJ. I know you.
I am not part of we.
That's fair. My thing with Carson was look at the back of the baseball card. Like Mike Rizzo always says that. And I think it's a smart thing that, like, I'm a big believer in kind of averages, and you throw out the outliers. Like when he was a stud in 2017, I said that was chasing a ghost. He was never going to give you that again. Too many injuries, and clearly something has happened. But I think as bad as he was, what was his last year in Philly? 20. When he got benched. 20. Like, I didn't think he was going to be that bad again either. Like, I thought both of those were the outliers. And if you look at what's in the middle, it's pretty good. He wasn't good here, period. And he's a nice guy. And I think all the locker room stuff we heard from other spots, I never saw any of that. He's a little introverted. Like, he's not that dude like you want your quarterback to kind of be, but that doesn't mean he's a bad person. But he was bad on the field, period. I think that hurt Scott a lot, frankly. I think it was Ron's call to go back to him for that Browns game, which was a disaster. But, dude, it's pro football. Your offense stinks. It's not showing a lot of signs of improvement. There may be a lot of reasons for that. Like, the reason Cliff Kingsbury and Steve Keim got fired is because they can't fire Kyler Murray. Like, you fire the coaches because the players are sticking around.
They on the hook. Dre, I know you said you was about to say something before we added
He's
this.
sipping tonight. We allowed to sip.
Absolutely. Come on.
Look, come on now. JP, it's the show. This is what
It's been
do.
a long day, boys. It's been a long day.
Hey, I'm with AJ tonight. I got the water, man. But Dre, I'll give you the floor because I know you didn't have a chance to speak on things. So what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, on Scott Turner, at the end of the day, I mean, we can talk about the quarterbacks, which is true. I mean, he had a shit hand dealt with him with quarterbacks. But at the same time, I mean, Scott Turner did himself in. I mean, like the feel of the game, I think that was his biggest issue. I mean, he just didn't feel the game in a lot of these situations. And that's big. Like, you can be a creative play designer. You can get guys open. You can scheme up a couple of different plays. But if you're not stringing together a consistent thing, or as JP mentioned, you're doing one thing in the second quarter and then you're going back in the fourth quarter, but you're not tricking people or you're not faking people with these looks. So it was just like his feel of the game. I mean, even I forget which game was it, the Giants or the San Fran game where Brian Robinson had very few carries in the game. And it's like, he's your best running back. And actually, he's been your best offensive player over these last few weeks in a sense. And he's getting 12 carries in an important game. So it was like, these are the things that were kind of dooming Scott. And you can just tell that whenever Ron was asked questions about Scott, that his patience was wearing thin in a sense, like they weren't aligning together. So the Scott Turner news just doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, we kind of all expected this. Well, the players growing frustrations over the last couple of weeks. So, I mean, that's pretty much just my thought on it. It's not surprising, but now the question is, and I wanted to ask JP this because obviously he's plugged in. What direction do you go in now? I mean, me and the fellas were having this conversation beforehand. We were talking like, what are Ron's options here? I mean, he's in seemingly a lame duck situation. What direction can he go in? I don't think he can go in and get a bona fide young stud candidate, but we're kind of looking and trying to tie the dots and maybe he's going to get a Carolina guy. But JP, what do you think his options are realistically here going into next season for this coaching search?
So I think a couple things. I get that it's lame duck and maybe nobody wants to come here, but I mean, what's the guy's name from Philly that Steichen, I think is his name, Shane Steichen, something like that?
Yeah, Shane Steichen, the OC.
Yeah, he's not coming here. He's going to have serious options probably as a head coach, like Kafka from the Giants. That top tier aren't coming here, but they're probably not going anywhere that's a lateral move. So exclude like the top tier of people. I think one, you've got there's multiple things here. Keep in mind that a lot of offensive coordinators aren't the play callers. Like a lot of these offensive coaches are the play callers. So they have an OC that has that title, but they're not play callers. You come here, you're the play caller. And that's a huge deal for people that are trying to become a head coach. Look back a couple of years ago to Matt LaFleur when he was working with Sean with the Rams, and then he left to take the Titans job because he got to call plays. And it was a lateral move technically, but it's not lateral when you get to be a play caller. You'll get that here. And I don't know where else you're getting that opportunity. There's 32 OC jobs. Probably 20 of them you get to call plays. Probably 5 of them are coming up. So like some of it is just, this may be a lame duck and I only get 1 year, but if I run good offense, that tape's out there for whatever comes next. Could he go young, innovative route? Maybe. I mean, he did it with Scott, even though that was kind of one of his guys from Carolina, and certainly Ron and Norv have a lot of history there. I also say this, and maybe I'm like trying to sound optimistic here, but if he does hire an older coach, like if he does hire somebody, whether it's from Carolina or elsewhere, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. Like, Jack Del Rio's been good. He hired Jack Del Rio from ESPN. He was out of the league. Like, he could make another move like that. The obvious names to me are Chizinski, who was with him with the Panthers, Shula, who was with him with the Panthers. Both those guys are in kind of, I don't want to call them fake roles, but they're both like assistant offensive head coaches or something. I think Chud is with like I think Boston College. Shula's with the Bills. Those guys would make a ton of sense. Both were OCs for him. Shula was there when they went to the Super Bowl. I think there's a lot of young candidates that could be interesting. Also, keep in mind the Rooney Rule now applies to offensive coordinators. So they're going to have to bring some minority candidates in. All of that has to get reported to the Fritz Pollard Alliance. So, like, this is not going to – like, Ron's not just going to fire out a statement tomorrow, yeah, we hired Mike Shula. Like, that's not how it's going to go. And there's policies in place that make this go differently now. And maybe it'll work. Like maybe a young black dude will come in and wow him, and he'll love the concepts, and he'll love, hey, Ron, I know you want to run the ball, and I want to run the ball too, but I think we do that in a different way than you were running it. And I think we can use Gibson and Robinson on the field at the same time. Like it's entirely possible that this thing goes a direction we're not expecting, and it's a good development.
That's one thing, AJ, because I know where you was headed. So I just wanted to get in right quick. Yeah. What about this thing where he mentioned, I didn't take him literal when he said like the 2-to-1 ratio, because that's not even in like 55%. Yeah, I'm about to say like that's Atlanta. They're around 54%. Yeah. So my thing is like, how do you even convince, like if you have a philosophy coming, I'm not saying it's impossible. You already broke down like a way that a coordinator or a potential coordinator could wow Ron Rivera. But if do you think that Ron is the type of person, based on like your understanding of Ron, that he's going to be headstrong and coming into these interviews saying that I want a guy who's going to look or envision or see things the way I see things, and I want to have a run first type of offense. Can you do this for me? And if you can't do this for me, then I don't know how we're going to work together. How do you kind of envision that whole thing playing out? With your understanding of Ron and understanding that he wants to be that run first offense.
So I think it's a multi-layered question, right? I think, dude, like the Rams offense last year that won the Super Bowl was run first. The Niners offense, for everything they do, for all the motion and all the isolation of their best players, that's a run first offense. Like I still firmly believe in running the football in the NFL, and there are a lot of really good head coaches, especially off that Shanahan tree, that believe in running the football. Run first doesn't mean 34 belly on one set hike. You know what I mean? Like it can look very, very different. Two, I think, as Ron said in his ways, of course, I think all four of us know that. But I think this scenario is different. Ron has this meeting next week with Dan and Tanya, and his next meeting with ownership might be with different owners. And maybe this has to show, like maybe this is a hire, not necessarily for Dan and Tanya, but for what's coming down the road. And you want to show that you are you have a wide base for your thinking, and you want to show that you're trying to take this thing up a notch. And I think as much as they tried to not dismiss it, but they said, we're just going to do our thing and ownership's going to be ownership. They're thinking about it. They're absolutely thinking about it. Now, I don't know what it means as far as hiring a new OC, but I think it'll be part of the equation.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ron has to show that he can also turn one of his greatest attributes and greatest weakness of loyalty into a strength now, going into possibly his last year being a head coach in the NFL, because I feel like his loyalty has put him in bad situations with certain hires. When you think about the Scott Turner over Kevin O'Connell, or maybe even the Jack Del Rio over Wade Phillips. Like, who knows how differently this defense would have looked statistically, and also from creating turnovers. But I was telling Mual earlier that I feel like this opportunity kind of, unfortunately, probably fits a minority candidate perfectly. Take a Brian Johnson, who's the quarterback coach for the Philadelphia Eagles. If Shane ends up not getting a head coaching job, he remains the OC. That's a perfect opportunity for someone who's been mentoring and helping out Jalen Hurts, and was also the offensive coordinator at the University of Florida, to get an opportunity to be an offensive coordinator and kind of run the same scheme that they're doing at the Eagles, where it is run first, but it does have the variations of being able to create some passing concepts and things of that nature. Because like you said, the Rams, the 49ers are run first teams, but the way that Kyle and McVay get creative in the passing game, it kind of feels like it's very balanced. And unfortunately, Scott wasn't able to adapt to that. So how do you how do you feel about possibly a guy like a Brian Johnson possibly coming in here? Because I feel like, honestly, none of us really have a pulse on who could be the OC. Yeah, they now have the interview minorities, but I think a lot of us are just running down the past tree that Ron Rivera has, such as the Chajinskis or the Shulas, the North Turners and such, but we don't really know of any external possible candidates, whether they be young or old, and if they even are open to being innovative and bringing some young juice into the building and giving them that opportunity.
I mean, you like to think the program will work, right? And I mean, I can't speak specifically to the Eagles candidate you're saying. I think about Deuce Staley, dude. And I don't know, the Deuce would come here. I mean, Deuce is a pretty outspoken guy, but like I've met him through B. I know him a little bit. B actually sent me home when we were hanging out with him because I got way too drunk. But we like watching Hard Knocks. I love Deuce. Like that's a dude I'd be interested in. There's a guy, like, maybe I'm just fanboying out, but there's a dude on McVay's staff, a young guy that I find interesting. I want to
Thomas Brown, the running back coach. Yeah, he's pretty.
Like, he's also coached tight ends. If you go and like read transcripts or watch how Sean has talked about him, I find that really interesting. And dude, I mean, specifically to the minority candidate thing, I'd be curious what Jason Wright's role is in all this. And he hasn't been involved in football, but I would think if you look at what the organization has done since they've hired Ron, they have absolutely tried to put women and minority people into positions of power. So I think it's going to be an interesting part of this process. I have no idea what's going to happen.
Well, JP, now, see, I'm bringing up a point, kind of what you were alluding to before AJ had asked you a question. AJ brought up the younger candidates, and you were mentioning guys that may make a lateral move, but they get to be the man now here. There's a name being floated out there, and that's Eric Bieniemy, who obviously
I don't see it at all. Mitch brought this up on the
Okay.
And
I think I said Michael Jackson's name too as offensive coordinator.
but see, the Eric Bieniemy thing does make sense in a sense from the point.
But hasn't he started calling the plays out there?
But he still doesn't get the credit.
Said he's now the play
Let's
caller.
take a look.
Right. I mean,
Andy said that a couple of years ago, and but if you notice, he's not getting no traction.
You think he's going to get more traction leaving Mahomes?
But see, a lot that maybe in his mind, I don't know why he's not a head coach, but he interviews every year for a head coaching job. And I at this point, all of us are trying to connect the dots and see why is he not being a head coach. A lot of people are bringing up his past, but then a lot of people are also saying that he's a product of Mahomes and Reed. So maybe he wants to get out of their shadow. And maybe that's where some of these rumors are kind of coming into play with Bieniemy, because if he goes somewhere like Washington, where he calls the plays, and he does maybe have a successful year, that's something good to put on his resume that he couldn't put in Kansas City.
That conceptually makes sense. I don't think, I don't think it if I'm Eric Bieniemy and I'm in a situation with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Jerick McKinnon and whoever they add next year, and that factory just keeps housing points, right? And I have an opportunity, and that opportunity is to go to Washington, which is likely going through an ownership change, with a head coach and a GM that sure seem to only want to run the ball. And it looks like I could be canned the following year. And I don't know what's happening with my O-line, and I don't know what's happening with my quarterback. That ain't for me. I'm staying.
Yeah.
I'll keep eating ribs. But, like, I say this a lot. Dude, being in it for a little while now, knowing people that it's their life, 80, 85, maybe 90% of the league is about self-preservation and just knowing how good you have it and how much you love it and just wanting to stay in it. And I'm not saying that about Bieniemy at all. I've never met him, never spoke to him. But, like, I'd have a real hard time. The name, if you want a name, to me, would be Leftwich over Bieniemy. I mean, Leftwich's success was kind of attributed to Arians. This year he gets to be the play caller. It's kind of not gone great. Everybody's going to say it's Brady. Leftwich is from here. That whole situation maybe explode. Who the hell knows what Brady's doing? Like, if you're shooting for the moon, and maybe Bieniemy's even higher up in the stars because he's been doing this longer. But Leftwich has a ring as an OC. Bieniemy has a ring as an OC. Like, if you're shooting for if you're big game hunting, for lack of a better word, I think Leftwich makes more sense than Bieniemy. If I'm Bieniemy and somebody else calls me to be an OC, I'm telling them to go bleep themselves. I'm only answering calls for head coach.
That's fair. I was gonna say, so there's two things. First thing is a statement. Dre, just given your reason, I think if there was a devil advocate's way, wouldn't this kind of simply be like the same thing in terms of like a gray area for Carson Wentz? Like, if there's so much unknown or controversy surrounding like the Bieniemy name, wouldn't that be taking just another risk similar to Carson? Like, imagine if the offensive coordinator job doesn't work here and he's calling plays. Like, he's undoubtedly calling plays in Washington. That can get a little scary if things just fall flat on his face again. Again, I'm not saying it's going to happen. Just a statement in terms of a counterpoint. But Brian Leftwich, JP, is it really as simple as requesting permission to interview Brian Leftwich or Byron Leftwich? They give permission or they don't give permission, and therefore, if he wants to come here after you talk to him, it's just that simple? Or is there more layers?
More layers when it's a lateral move.
Okay.
If it's a step up, you're granted the permission. And dude, a lot of this stuff changed over the last 3 years, so that's my understanding. I could be wrong, but I know if AJ, who was your guy? Who was you mentioned the QB coach from Philly?
Brian Johnson.
Brian Johnson. If the Commanders called Philly to ask about Brian Johnson for the OC job, it's my understanding Philly would have to say yes. Because, dude, hell, it's America. Somebody's going to get a promotion. You got to let him go, right? Or at least interview for it. Now, if they called him about the quarterback's job, they can be like, nah, beat it.
Okay. So I didn't want to take up a lot of time. I appreciate you even joining us this evening, JP. So I have one more question, AJ. I'll give it to you all, Dre, as well.
Hold on. What's AJ's Twitter handle? Because you two are like two of my favorite Twitter followers. I'm going to follow AJ.
I was AJ_Thompson Jr.
Hang on.
You'll love him, JP. He's the troublemaker of the three of us.
He's going to be on your ear about everything. Let me see if I can.
I'll be chilling.
I'm gonna retweet this one just in
I
case
get enough people giving me grief. Am I going to be catching heat here?
Or no, I don't do that.
Nothing like that. Nothing like that.
All conversation purpose. That's it.
I'm looking at AJ's Twitter. Girl, you got a 10-piece. Don't be stingy.
It was hey JP. You remember there used to be a McDonald's commercial, and I seen it on my timeline. It was like an R&B song, like version of the McDonald's commercial in reference to a 10-piece nugget. So
they got JP already stressing, man. He's stressing already.
I'll tag you in it so you can see it after the show.
I'm gonna watch it right now.
You got a 10-piece. All right, so where was I at, man?
I do remember that. I'm gonna retweet that right now.
I just remember it sipping. No retweet anything till tomorrow.
People are gonna be like, "Why did JP just retweet it?"
He's sipping tonight.
It's a long story. All right, so last thing on my side, let's expand outside of just the OC spot. Just overall, like your biggest offseason needs obviously is going to be surrounding quarterback. So I guess we can eliminate that. Offensive line is up there too. But I guess my thing is, how do you kind of address it? What is your proper approach? If you had to lay out your plan, your offseason plan, I'll just give you the floor. I'm not even answering anything. What's the plan that you would prefer in terms of attacking the offseason?
So real quick, just for Dre, Benjamin Albright is a Broncos guy, but covers the whole league. He's saying he heard a rumor about Bieniemy after the season that he's on a 1-year deal and that he might be gone. So if you want to, I already saw the dude, Chris, that I follow on Twitter, Chris Worthy, already already has a mock-up of Bieniemy in a Commander's quarter zip. So things are moving, man. Who knows?
Chris, a good dude. That's my boy.
Dude, he's funny. I DM'd with him. I think I had him on the podcast way back. Jamal, the question was,
you go off season plan, how you would define it. Obviously, quarterback and offensive line is up there, but if you had to make the rules, if you had to make out the plan off free agency, you're going after XYZ, draft XYZ, Sam Howell, QB1, etc. How's your plan?
Dude, I don't know. That's a serious question. What do you guys think of Anthony Richardson?
Man,
I think he's wrong. I think he's Malik Wilson in a sense. Malik Willis. I think he's similar to Malik Willis in a sense. I think he's a little better than Malik Willis, but I also think that you're going to be taking a risk by relying on him if you want him to start as a rookie. And that's kind of one of the things, honestly, that I was going to ask JP. Like, JP, what do you think Ron's approach is this season? How is he approaching this offseason? Do you think he's aggressive for a quarterback like he was last offseason? How do you think he approaches? What is his sentiment this year for the quarterback search?
I don't think he knows. I asked him. I tried to ask him today, stop going after veterans. I'm serious. I don't think whatever they do, I don't want to use assets to acquire it. I'm out on Carr. The Raiders stink, and they're getting rid of them, and that's perhaps too simple of a process. But I don't think I'm not sure anything's ever going to work as long as Dan is around, but Dan might be gone. So maybe things can start working. And I think you got to draft and develop a young guy. I like Howell. I don't know what Howell is. There's the dream scenario that he emerges into Kirk Cousins or something. Russ Wilson, whatever you want to say. There's also the scenario that Houston just got boned by, that Davis Mills showed him enough to come back the next year and run it back with Davis Mills, and then he stunk. So I don't know what you got in Howell, but I'm intrigued. I wouldn't hate drafting somebody and then bringing a veteran in. I think Taylor's return probably took a hit with Scott going. I also think it's pretty hard to try to develop somebody else with the fan base with Taylor, just how maniacal the hardcore Heineke supporters are. I love the kid, and I think has a ton of value, but I think it's as a really, really good backup. So I think I don't know what you do at 16. I don't see them trading up. If something wacky happens and the Bears don't trade out of that pick and all you have to get to I love Bryce Young. I don't see it happening, but I love that kid.
JP, let me ask you this.
I know what AJ talked about this earlier.
Because I thought about it. It hit me immediately as soon as Chicago locked in the number 1 seed. I was like, They got a new GM and a new head coach that did not go. I know where this is going. They weren't a part of the Justin Fields. They weren't a part of the Justin Fields selection. I honestly think that they're going to go after Bryce Young and feel like they can pick up assets by moving Justin Fields to add more talent to the team. Would you give up a first and a third possibly for Justin Fields that's still on the rookie deal?
2 years through the deal, so you get him for 3. You got to pay him at the end of next year. If you did that, you'd be paying Justin Fields this time next year. 3 years into his deal, he's up for the contract. He's going to start deleting everything off his Instagram. You'd have to pay him. I don't know, dude. I hadn't really thought about that. I don't think it's that plausible. I like him as a prospect. He's still got to grow a lot as a passer, but damn, he's electric. You build the right thing around him, I'd be really, really intrigued. I think it would cost you more than the 1 and the 3, though, and they don't have a 3. So it's intriguing.
I think they get a 3 from
the comp pick, right?
Brandon Scherf.
The comp pick.
That's true.
Yeah, Brandon Scherf. Yeah.
It's intriguing. I think it'll cost more than that, but I also don't. I don't know, dude.
I don't think none of us know. We're just that's the interesting part about this offseason. You have no clue what Ron is doing. You don't know what the owner's going to do.
None of it matters until they know what the owner's doing.
Yeah, exactly. Because if Daniel Snyder wasn't selling this team, Ron wouldn't even be able to fire Scott Turner because he would have been gone.
Yeah. fellas, if there's no further questions for JP, man, like I said, I appreciate you sticking with us, man. I give you the floor, plug, talk, anything and everything. Look, man, you came through. I know you got some family things to tend to, so I appreciate the time. Washington Football Talk podcast, elite podcast. I think everybody know that. I think everybody listens. NBC Sports Washington, 167 The Fan. Is there anything else that I'm missing? I done covered it all.
Dude, I'm going to there's a sports book opening this week in DC.
Oh yeah, hey,
it's gonna be fun.
I
only go to the fourth floor. I want the world.
I was over there
I only
Sunday.
go to the fourth floor.
Yeah, I got to see the action, buddy.
Sounds good.
I need double action. I need my parlays and I need some. You know what I'm saying? I need some.
Give me all that. You know how we should.
This is the first one of these in the country. Like, how is it not in Vegas or Miami or like in a casino in Arizona or something?
That's one thing Leonsis had a vision for. Leonsis was on top of that before anyone else was. He was like, we're going to build this sports book, the first sports book here, right by Capitol Center. They took the Green Turtle away. I like Green Turtle. They had the good drinks, but they put the sports book there.
Hey, Dre, I'm going to be hitting your phone, bro. I'm going to be hitting your phone real soon for these playoffs.
You know, it is what it is.
Dude, Leonsis is a visionary, dude. I mean, if you go back to how he made his money with America Online, like, what that was and what it became when everybody was on AOL Instant Messenger. I mean, the guy's clearly a visionary. And, dude, Dre, you text me next time you're going down there. My boy Kevin, have you been into the new – so, obviously, the first floor is like the Caesar Sportsbook, but the second story now, they have a Guy Fieri restaurant in there.
I haven't been since they put the guy. I saw when they were doing the construction for it, but cool. I haven't been there since they've done it. I got to check it out.
Cool, I
love Guy Fieri.
It's a good spot.
Yeah, definitely. I'll text you. I'll hit you up.
Yeah.
All right, man. We got planned, man. JP, I appreciate you again. Take care, big dog.
Question, Mual. Are the ballerinas? Are they like a part of the sports book too? Like,
they play a part. JP will probably know. JP will probably know better than us. I don't want to get him in trouble or anything.
No,
but,
there's married dudes out there like me, or whatever your situation is. But so the first floor. This is 4th and K Northwest, right? The first floor is like a really high-end, kind of like South American steakhouse called, I think, Delinea, something like that.
Yeah, Delinea is over there.
Okay.
I was just there Sunday, actually.
Oh, well, then you know. Why are you asking me?
I mean, I know, but I haven't been to the sports book part. The crazy thing is, like,
it's a legit sports book.
Crazy thing.
AJ doesn't gamble like me and Maul.
Yeah, he ain't in there.
When I was working with D Hall, typically our routine on Sundays, we used to, after the games that were home, we would go over there to relax, kick back, relax, and watch the Sunday night games.
Right,
so I just didn't know if the ballerinas were a part of the over and under.
Second and third floor are cloakroom. And cloakroom is obviously the ballet. They built a 4th floor rooftop.
Okay.
This wild, like, retractable roof, all glass, beautiful bar, 1 billion TVs, and there's no action up there. Everybody's fully clothed. Dude, you feel like you're in Miami. Like, it's a swanky, cool spot with like killer bourbon selection and like tequila, and there's a separate elevator. Like, you don't have to go through anything. And it's a dope spot, man.
Okay.
Sounds dope.
So I guess I'll be maneuvering on
JP had me at the bourbon. Shit. That's all you had to have me at. I don't even care about the sports.
Bullshit, bro. No bull, man. Okay. All right, JP. Now we good. Go ahead, man. Take care.
Let's get JP to make one prediction before he gets out of here.
Yeah,
well, 2 predictions. Prediction. Who do you think ultimately will be the offensive coordinator? And
I thought I got to make my own prediction. These are questions.
This is yours.
Yeah, I'm getting.
AJ wants facts.
No. I'm asking you for your prediction. OC and QB for 2023.
That's fair.
Fair. You're using fair pretty loosely. OC Mike Shula. QB Jimmy Garoppolo.
All right, let's make it fair for JP. Your preference is both OC, QB. Your preference is not realistic. Your preference.
I like the kid from the Rams. I like people that Sean vouches for. He's a young man. Who the hell knows? But I'd be willing to roll the dice, I think. At quarterback,
Hey, you get Sam, you get to build up that offensive line.
Dude, I don't know that Heineke comes back now, but I kind of made my peace with a Heineke Howell open competition because I think Howell wins it. And then we all kind of think it's a lame duck year anyway. We at least find out what he's got. If he's got something,
that's where I'm at.
Maybe we got
That's
something.
me. That's where I'm at.
But do I get to make a bold prediction still, or do I just have to
Yes,
answer?
you do.
Hey, the floor is
Absolutely.
yours.
I do not think Jeff Bezos buys this team.
Oh, that's bold. He's the favorite.
That's a problem for AJ. He was banking on Bezos and Jay-Z.
It's really not a problem for me. I really don't care too much who the ownership is. I just want the team that I've been rooting for since I was a little kid to win games. I could care less who the owner is, honestly.
Me and you both. I don't want it to be the current guy, but outside of that, I just want
Yeah, I mean, even with that, I it's like I don't have any control, but who's to say that the next owner isn't just as bad? So
I want to go. What I really want
like
is
to think
go
about
to Jay's
that
house and listen to him play that piano.
hey, when you come in his house, you're gonna smell like Ben Gay when you leave.
That's weird. That's my cue to go.
Yeah, Ben Gay and Bourbon all up in the crib, man. All right, JP, you take care, big dog. Appreciate you, man.
Guys, take care.
Hey, appreciate you, JP.
Yes, sir. There we go. JP, Finlay, everybody. Sorry we could not get to the comments. It was a lot going on, but hopefully you all enjoyed the conversation as well. But fellas, that was probably actually longer than I anticipated with JP in a good way. Because we were told like 20 minutes. But that was fine. Any closing thoughts? Because we do have another day this week. We'll be back. For those who aren't familiar with the schedule this week, we will be back on Thursday to close out this week, and then next week we're back to once a week for Trapper Dive. So, fellas, do we have any closing thoughts? I know we talked about OC and Rivera, somewhat of quarterback. Is there anything that you all want to tap into before we get out of here?
Closing thoughts for me. It's the same thing I said last week. Now that we know officially, we pretty much know that Ron is going to be back. Him firing Scott Turner means he's going to be back this year. So for me, same thing I told you all last week, and I told you all the text messages, do the bare minimum at quarterback. Now that is unless you do.
Hey, bro.
Hey, this news, okay, this Scott Turner news. Now, if Scott Turner, you fire Scott Turner, now, unless you hire a guy, in a sense, what we've been talking about, the lateral moves, like an Eric Bieniemy, so to speak, that's the only scenario that I see where I would say you go hard at quarterback. If you go out and you get an Eric Bieniemy, then you have to be all in on a Lamar Jackson or one of the higher profile names. And then if you're not getting an Eric Bieniemy and you're getting one of Ron's friends, then do the bare minimum at quarterback. 1 year. Just do whatever. Let Sam Howell. To me, I mean, it's from a fan's perspective, it's a lose situation because if Sam Howell's bad, you're having a bad season and you're not having any fun as a fan watching the season. But if Sam Howell's good, then you've identified a guy. And if he's not good, on the flip side, hey, new owner comes in, he's changing everything out. Pick. Hey, you might be in position to draft one of the, a great or a really good quarterback prospect in a really good quarterback draft. So that's my closing thoughts. Hey, if you're going after the high-profile offensive coordinator, then you're going after a high-profile quarterback. If you're not, if you're just getting Ron's friends, do the bare minimum, live with next season, let the new owner change the team. The whole franchise is starting new in 2024. That's it.
Yeah, I think my closing statement is they're fucked because Ron Rivera is doing the picking.
I should have just started.
OC,
he in the race, but
picking up the OC and the quarterback. They're fucked. We're fucked. Everybody's fucked. That's how 2023 is gonna go for the Manders.
For the Manders. Hey, listen, for me, man, it's simple as well. I think for at least 2023, the answer is right in front of you, Rivera. Look no further than Sam Howell. And this is not me saying that is not an endorsement for Sam Howell from a player standpoint. I don't know what he has after one game. And I'm not going to proclaim that he's good or bad, but I'm in the same boat as Dre in that this ain't an offseason where you really like as much as you were focused on quarterback the last 2 seasons. You have a rookie that's under contract that you have for 3 more years, and that you saw completely blew your expectations in a positive way because you all thought that he had some things to work on, but he held his own in a spot where the team that he was going up against were actually playing for something for a short period of time. So ultimately, I think that for Rivera and company, regardless of who the offensive coordinator is, the answer at quarterback is staring you right in the face. Don't fumble it. Go ahead and give Sam Howell that opportunity for 2023, because at this point you have much more a much better chance of revamping that offensive line and figuring out what to do in the draft if you can just go ahead and commit to a guy that's really cheap and move forward from there. Davis Mills was there in Houston. Now that team was much worse overall from a roster standpoint than what Washington has. Washington has a better roster than Houston going into 2023. And you have the opportunity to continue to build around it and revamp that offensive line. And so long as you go with that rookie and figure things out from there. So answer is right in front of you, Ron. Figure that shit out. But don't mess up this quarterback position again, because you're gonna be out quicker than many.
Ron said his name is Stevie Wonder. He don't see shit, so he don't see that answer, my boy. Nah, he really don't see that. So I mean,
that's my fit.
We just fucked.
I'm scared, man. I ain't gonna lie to you. Not like scared literally, but I'm like, I really don't trust him. Like, and that's just 3 years of him wearing down on people. That's 3 years of him wearing down on people. AJ is hilarious, bro.
AJ's stupid, man. He's stupid.
Nah, he is. He ain't even drinking, but this man's sipping water. Matter of fact,
what's in your water bottle?
What's in your water bottle, bro?
Look, Mual, people like AJ don't need to drink. They natural. They good. They straight. He can go any way he go and drink that damn bottle of water he's drinking.
Y'all man got on a podium and said, I did that. I did the analytics. I watched the tape.
I'm the fucking guy. He said, I'm the fucking guy.
I'm the guy. That pick Carson Wentz, you expect him to say, oh, shit, Sam Howell could play quarterback and be QB1? Hell no, dog. That man is trying to win, and he's going
to Derek Carr? I got 3 first rounders for him.
Man, that's what I'm saying. It's going to be an intriguing offseason for them, for us, the content we're going to be able to produce, the conversations. Yeah, dog. Like, I mean, we just going back and forth about an OC, and we ain't hit the combine. We ain't hit Super Bowl week, which is coming right around the corner. It could be a new owner announced Super Bowl week, which is several weeks away. Oh boy, it's
buckle up.
It's lights, camera, action. It might be on Hard Knocks or in the season. Somebody got to film this content and make some money off of it.
Cool, man. Buckle up, everybody. Hey, so listen, the fellas will be back Thursday. All 32 will be here tomorrow. All 32 Side of Trap or Die podcast. Morning show has not gone anywhere, but next up will be the film session. I'm shooting for Friday this week. We'll do a film session and get some updates on whatever else is out there with Washington coordinator related or whatever. Fellas, y'all take it easy, man. Enjoy y'all evening. Dre, I hope you bet on the Georgia Bulldogs with your boy last night, because I sure as hell did.
Dog, I didn't even touch the college football game last night. I mean, even though I knew I was starting to take that Georgia minus 14 because I knew they were going to dog TCU, but I didn't.
Game was over after the first quarter.
It was.
Game was over after he said we going hunting.
That's why Michigan should have beat TCU ass so we could have avoided all of this. We could have just had a nice little Monday night with a national championship, but instead we got fluke TCU, and it was what it was.
Send that man John Harbaugh or Jim Harbaugh back to the NFL, bro.
Yeah, he need to come back. Go ahead, come on back, bro.
Yeah, man. Yeah. All right. So that's gonna wrap it up for us today. We'll be back on Thursday. Close out the week, man. Y'all boys be safe. Everybody in the chat, thank y'all for listening, watching, all that good stuff. Hit that like button before y'all dip. We out of here. Peace.